cyber warfare is fast becoming the next frontier of crime. The world is becoming more vulnerable to cyber criminals. And major global powers are very busy setting up cyberspace defense forces, from China to United States and of course to Russia. Cyberspace is becoming the next frontier, or if you like it, the next military battleground. Just last week, Kenyan systems were rendered inaccessible by a group known as Anonymous Sudan. And this just goes ahead to show how prevalent is cybercrime and how dangerous is this form of crime. Good evening and thank you very much for joining us. Right on time for the most intelligent conversation this side of Sahara. This is the Scorecard. We are live from Broadcasting House. My name is O'Brien Kimani. At O'Brien Kimani is our Twitter handle, or is my Twitter handle, and at KBC Channel 1 is our Twitter handle. I'm joined by Marie Yambo. Tonight's conversation revolves around cyber warfare. What's happening in the cyberspace? Well, Marie Yambo is also joining us tonight because, as usual, she has the latest in form of data. Marie Yambo, what are the numbers talking about?
Thank you so much, O'Brien. Well, like you always say, jaw-dropping numbers. But before we get there, O'Brien, you just talked about the raging cyber warfare. You know, time has come, we were discussing before this program began, that no longer do you have robbers really breaking into your home. So now they only need to access your phone or your computer to actually attack you. So that is what we'll be talking about this evening. And so I want to take you through some of the numbers that we were able to avail today. But just before we get to the numbers, we just want to understand what is cybersecurity, attacks. So cybercrime, Oxford Dictionary just says it's an activity that is carried out, through the internet or your computer, and it can be carried out for, financial gains or non-financial gains. We look at the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics numbers. That is a report of 2023, which puts online attacks at 339.1 million. That is in 2021. 2022, it stands as 700 million. That is an increase, definitely. And now cybersecurity advisories, these are just advice that are given to companies and organizations to help them, identify or at least secure their systems. In 2021, it stood at 8 million, and in 2022, it increased to 13.7 million. That just gives you a picture of what the threats are. Now, system vulnerabilities, this just means the weaknesses that can be identified in a system that can allow cyber criminals to attack, and that stood at 58 million in 2021. 2022, it is at 452.4 million. So our guest tonight will be explaining to us what that means, because if we have vulnerabilities increasing to 452.4 million shillings, 4 million, what does that portend for companies and organizations in the country? So let's look at some of the leading cybersecurity threats in Kenya. Now, according to the KNBS 2023 report, malware tops at number one, and this is just a software designed with the intention of damaging services and even stealing data. In 2021, it stood at 181.9 million, and 2022, it's at 163.9 million. So just a slight decrease there. Now, the second one is botnets, distributed denial of services, DDoS. If you listen to the CS for ICT and the digital economy, that is Elido Wallo, he did mention this, and he said what we actually experienced last week was not really an attack per se into the data, but it was a denial of services, and that is why if you tried probably to log into the eCitizen for whatever reason, whether it's NTSA or paying for your visa, if you're leaving the country, then you did actually have a problem over there. So it stood at 82.7 million attempts in 2022. 2021, it was at 92.1 million. The other is web application attacks. In 2021, it was at 7 million, and 2022, it has reduced to 1 million attempts. We look at the economy. Definitely, when it comes to cyber, crime, it means money in most cases, So according to a report by the Cybersecurity Ventures, the global crime is expected to increase to $10.5 trillion annually by 2025. That is up from 3 trillion shillings, $3 trillion, that is, in 2015. Now, TransUnion 2021 Digital Fraud Report indicates that Kenyan banks lose, about 7.3 billion shillings annually. Again, the international business machine, that is the corporation IBM in 2021, said SACCOs lost 106 million, in 2021, and data breaches in the financial industry in total costs about $5.85 million in the country. So, O'Brien, those are the numbers. We can start the discussion to unpack some of these numbers. And what does that mean for us? Those are some of the things that, our guest tonight will be unpacking for us. So it's over to you.
Of course, thank you very much indeed, Marie Yambo, for taking us through the numbers and, of course, through the statistics. And we have always said this on the show, that numbers do not lie. And, of course, facts are stubborn. You're watching The Scorecard. We just now want to take you back to last week when the entire country was worried. A group of hackers known as Anonymous Sudan attempted to infiltrate a number of government services as well as private sector online services. Some of the services that were affected, or platforms that were affected, include the popular e-Citizen platform, which houses more than 5,000 government services, as well as the buying of electricity tokens by Kenya Power, as well as other services. And of course, the government came out to clearly state that what the country went through was an attempted attack. We just want to take you to last week and, of course, listen to our top government officials and what they said in regard to the attempted hack.
And the data that we have within the e-Citizen platform was in no way interfered with. What they did was to make more than normal requests into the system so that the system gets jammed or the system gets clogged.
The most important thing is whether the country has the capability to deal with the attacks. We can't stop those attacks from coming in. Do we have the capability? Yes, 100%.
Our systems are updated and maintained to the proper status that is required.
Is Kenya prepared to deal with them, to mitigate any negative impact that is likely to arise? And we can say that on a daily basis we do that, and that's why this digital space has been operating efficiently and effectively.
Well, that's what senior government officials talked about in a bid to assure the country that we were indeed safe. We just want to remind you of a question of the day, and it emanates from that attempted hack last week. So the question is, how did the recent cyber attack on e-Citizen affect you? There you have it on the screen. How did the recent cyber attack on the e-Citizen affect you? You know the various platforms that you can reach us on, from Facebook to Twitter, and of course to our personal handles. We just want to hear from you. Let's now get back to the studio and have a conversation around this. As usual, a team of experts are going to help us and guide us in this conversation. Our star guest tonight is Chris Otieno. He's a security and safety expert. He has worked in Kenya and outside the nation on issues or on areas around security. He's going to help us with interesting facts and interesting insight into issues around cybersecurity. And of course, he's going to advise you on what you need to do to minimize the risks of getting yourself attacked. Chris, asante sana for joining us tonight on The Scorecard.
Thank you for having me.
Very good. And of course, next to Chris, we have Whitney Micheni. She's a political economist, a regular face on this program. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Channing.
Thank you, Brian, and also a good evening to your viewers.
Very good indeed. And of course, next, and of course, last but not least, we have Professor Fredo Gola, a governance expert, also a regular feature on this program. Prof, karibu sana.
Asante sana. I hope you're safe in terms of cyber.
I hope so too, and that's why we have Chris Otieno, so that he can help us understand how we save it all.
Yeah.
And I want to start with Chris Otieno. How vulnerable is the world when it comes to cyber criminals?
We would say that the world in general is quite vulnerable, very vulnerable, because there's so many avenues of attack which can be exercised by the actors. And the actors here would run from state players themselves, non-state players, corporate spies. And so the players are so many, and the fact that we have about 10 billion or more connection or devices in the global network, that alone, and the dynamicity of everything, that alone tells you that the avenues of attack and the vulnerability levels are very high.
So what is driving the increasing number of attacks, of cyber attacks, the world over?
There are quite a number of items that drive this. Number one, this is now the global arena. Nearly every service, every business that is rendered across the globe is dependent on ICT infrastructure. And if you look at organizations and governments themselves, they've also developed very formidable corporate backbones that run on IT. Government is offering their services on ICT. Businesses are being run on ICT. You have nearly all applications, every business transaction, cash transaction, economic transaction, medical services transaction, transportation, power grids, all of them are being run on ICT backbones, right? And with all these avenues of attack, and the fact that if it's an individual intent to make money, then this gives you an opportunity that you can exploit to make money for yourself. So there we are with all that vulnerability and interests coming from, and interest coming from all across the spheres.
Very well. Prof, I want to take you back to the year 2001 when New York was attacked by terrorists, and one of the most prominent country music singer of wartime, Alan Jackson, recorded a song saying, "Where were you when the world stopped turning?" I want to ask you, where were you last week when e-citizen services stopped working?
I was in Kenya. I was at home. I was actually just in the office doing my work. And I did follow the narrative. And in fact, when I hear the question, when I hear the topic we have, and when I hear the government responses, there's a lot of inconsistency. So I'm a very worried man. For example, you said, how did the attack affect you? That is the question of the day, which means there was an attack. And it said, at the attempted attack, then cybersecurity warfare. So you see, the government had, for me, I'm not even concerned about Anonymous Sudan or anything else. My main concern when I was at home during that day is that there was a lot of inconsistency. So I think as a country, we need to streamline our communication. Because the CS for ICT said very well that there was an attempted attack. And then later, the CS Internal Security said everything has been restored. You see, you don't restore what has not been attacked. You don't restore what has been unaffected. So I'm thinking that we panicked. There was people who brought a lot of fear-mongering, so we need to avoid it. And then lastly, I was concerned that we are still not yet patriotic Kenyans, because the very Kenyans were spoiling the very names of their own country. How vulnerable we are. We are not in Kenya Kwanza government. We are not in Azimio government saying that, look at this Kenya Kwanza government. They have been attacked. Kenya cybersecurity was attacked or attempted to be attacked. As a country, as we agreed that most of this thing is internal, if we are not more patriotic, why he said some people inside corporate are trying to help the government to fail. No, we can't do that. We need to be more patriotic, stand together as a country. How can we congratulate Anonymous Sudan for having attacked? I was so concerned with those things, Brand. So if you ask me, I was just concerned. That's why I was.
And I think at this point it's proper to to put this issue into perspective, because the government said very well that there was attempted attack.
Yes.
Okay. So there was an attack that was directed towards Kenyans' systems, but the attack was not successful. Okay. Did I get it right?
Yes, you got it right.
So what is the meaning of that?
There is quite a number of distortions here, Brian.
Yeah.
The first success of this is if it was an attempted attack, but then the information that came to the social media about it, that we have been attacked, you've denied this service, Kenya Power Tokens have been, Safaricom and Pesa, that falsified information alone was a success of the group.
Yes.
That alone was a success of the group. Because the avenue that they exploited is what we call denial of service. Were the services there at the time of the attack? Before we took remedial action to get back to our capabilities and abilities in terms of our infrastructure functionality, were the services there? And you would hear the panic, just like the professor said it, everybody panicked.
Yeah.
I can't access. Some of us cannot even get M-Pesa messages. You pay, but you cannot get back message that you paid or something. You just lie there in the cloud. Is nowhere tangible to confirm the usual service. So that denial alone tells you that something really happened to our cyberspace, and whatever happened was an attack, and we need to be truly told.
And Obran, just before we go there, for me, what happened, as explained by CS Owalo, was that you can always do too much traffic on a server. You know, servers are processors, so that they cannot process that magnitude of information. Then because processors normally process information depending on priority, so there are many servers, they can only handle so much traffic. So the traffic is too much, they can't process the information, and this is coming from somebody trying to hammer with some let's say initiating of let's say services into the server can't handle. So the ones who are genuine people who need services don't get. This might have happened, but know that they penetrated into our into our server space. They just generated too much that the servers can't handle, just like printers. If you generate too much printing into a printer, the printer might not be able to print, and therefore you're denied a service of printing, but know that somebody has hacked your printer.
Is it not that the printer is faulty?
No. It's just that somebody has put too much pressure on the printer, and because they have to schedule this and do them according to priority, it comes to a point when they cannot handle, and therefore the printer is still okay. If you just remove the instruction to the printer and disengage them, then now start giving new instruction, the printer actually can continue printing. So what I'm trying to say here is that fear-mongering was an issue. That's why I asked us to be patriotic Kenyans. Some people who cannot send M-Pesa started saying, I can't send you M-Pesa because M-Pesa services are down. So people took so many excuses with this information and took advantage of it. I can't send M-Pesa. M-Pesa services are down. If you don't have money, you don't have to bring fear-mongering to other people. I'm sure that we need to be a nation where we give accurate information, and I ask you be patriotic and actually be honest and sincere. I think for me that's what is key.
I want to hear from Micheni. You know, there were rumors, you know, even before Friday when the system became jammed or clogged, and the Cabinet Secretary for Information, Communication and Digital Economy, Eliud Owalo, was very clear that what we were going through was not an attack really, but it was what you call distributed denial of services, DDoS, whereby, you know, criminal elements, you know, tried to jam and clog our systems or our servers with so much information that the system became slow. And in this ensuing melee, I mean, there was a lot of confusion. People were saying A, B, C, D, and so much. From what the government said, did this settle your mind?
Thank you, Brian, and also a good evening to you viewers. As you all know, information is the new gold. Information is the new oil. It's the most valuable asset in businesses, in government. So anyone who can get unauthorized access to data is at an advantage be it the motive is financial or even just for fun, or to just, as you said, deny services, that's also just, it proves that it was a success. Now, coming to your question, the CS Owalo said that it was an attempted attack on the e-Citizen platform, but as you all know, from last week on Monday, actually, I do believe that Friday is when, actually as early as Thursday is when probably it came out to the fore, but as early as Monday, when we were trying to access the e-Citizen platform, there were a lot of it was rerouting you to other websites, or there was just there was a delay in receiving the OTP, the one-time password. So since Monday, I do believe this has been a week-long attempted attack. So we see that in the e-Citizen platform. We also know that the M-Pesa app was hacked because the M-Pesa app was not functioning. We know some also the KPLC tokens, you could not access to buy the tokens, and also some banking apps were targeted in this attack, and also some corporate businesses. When we look at the CS Owalo's statements, we come to ask our question, is our data safe? I don't believe that he assured us that our data is safe. If there was a data breach, I do not think that was very clear. He did not state that the government has fully invested in the infrastructure of end-to-end visibility. So even though there was an online traffic which the magnitude was high, that which exceeded the threshold that it should, we're not sure if they accessed our data. We're not sure, even as of now, we're not sure if the attacks are still ongoing, because we know some apps are still down, or they're still rerouting you to some other websites. I do believe that the government, there's some incoherence in the communication, and also that there's not clear messaging in how they have handled that now, reassuring the citizens that our data is safe. As you all know, e-Citizen hosts above 5,000 government services, and also these other organizations, be it Safaricom, be it KPLC. If there was any data breach, I think they need to come clean and, just to assure the citizens that, it was an attempted cyber attack, but our data is safe and it's secure.
Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to hear from you. I mean, you're saying that M-Pesa services were hacked.
The M-Pesa app was down.
Was down or
yes.
was hacked?
Yes.
The M-Pesa app was down. It was hacked. That was an attempted attack.
How do you know it was hacked?
Because it was not functioning.
Actually, M-Pesa sent messages telling people, if you want to use this, use USSD. I even have
functioning.
it. They wrote a message to you.
Is that a confirmation that it was hacked?
Oh, so why was they writing messages that they cannot use the app?
Chris, is it true that
if you read the outcome, it is supposed to function, but it wasn't functioning. Relate that to the threat landscape. Denial of service. So the service of that app was not being enjoyed by the subscriber. So basically we are saying we have a footnote that yes, we had it hacked and attacked.
It was hacked and attacked. Let me ask you this, because I mean Kenya is not unique in this game of cyber attack. I mean, just the other day, the U.S. State Department of Defense, also known as Pentagon, was attacked. Sweden was also attacked, and the list is endless. And these are what you'd call the superpowers of information warfare. Is it then unique to us that cyber criminals would want to attack our systems?
It is not unique at all to us. It is not unique at all. And just like you elaborated and said it so clearly, many countries have been attacked. And the first attack that brought cyber into the limelight of the global view was the 2007 April attack in Estonia, where the whole country went down in terms of networks. Then people started thinking about, now what do we do now? There's a single attack on a standalone computer. After that, then we're going to spread into the whole network. Then what do we do? And then the most interesting thing, team, is that these perpetrators include 13-year juveniles attacking networks. For example, NASA attacked by a 13-year-old juvenile. So what does that tell you? It tells you that the threat landscape is not just limited to Kenya alone. We have not seen probably the magnitude that this can cause. But if you look at corporate data reports, you'll find that even the organizations that are here themselves, they lose a lot of money to these hackers. And it starts from a very simple thing. A senior person in the group loses a laptop. Simple. then what happens? There are credentials in that laptop. They will exploit the information on that laptop and use it. Gives them a backdoor into that corporate's network. And after that, they roll out several attacks. Attack after attack, and money is lost and money is lost. So this is not unique to Kenya.
Is it possible, or is it then possible for countries to prevent attacks?
It is almost near impossible to prevent these attacks. I would want to say that very affirmatively.
And also, O'Brien, there are some attacks which
Did
are
he
emotional.
step on your shoes? Or you are through?
He can support and I'll support.
I'm saying that there are some attacks which are emotional. Like, for example, when someone just make noise, Kenya cyberspace under attack, M-Pesa cannot work. You may find that 50 million people are trying to go into M-Pesa app, and that actually causes the traffic and ends up just being an attack. So attack can be many things. You know, this thing called server in Kenya is highly contested. You should open server. What is a server? A server is what offers a service. When you hear server should be open, a server is like a computer is a client that offers a service. So when these computers are just so many, or these servers are just so many, and the traffic is too much on them, that traffic can actually easily create kind of a jam in the system. So it could not be just an attack that someone is trying to access your data. It could just that someone create a lot of emotion, just like you are in a place where there are too many people say that somebody is shooting. Then people can start running and even just got injured, yet no one was shooting. So these are just, there are so many tricks. That's why I say in Kenya we need to start giving accurate information, because not giving accurate information is an enemy to this. It gives us become more vulnerable. Secondly, we need to be more. And if you look at it, for example, the first attack in cyber actually was in 1991. The one you talk about NASA, by this teenager. So we have had history, and any country is vulnerable. Look at now the issue of artificial intelligence, AI. This thing, not even people knows its definition very well. And now with the fact that it is coming with more young generation, not some of us were born before computer. So if you are born before computer, that's why younger people are more easily able to do this, because for them they are born with a computer. Your son can handle your phone much better than you.
Much better.
Yeah.
So you are looking at the young population. For them, they are born, they started playing with the computer when they were 1 year old. For you, when did you hold a computer in your hand? Basically, my first computer I bought when I had a master's degree. My son is holding a computer at this age. We cannot be on the same way. So you realize that we're doing catch up. Then the last time we discussed about this, I told you, it's like being on a treadmill. And when you put everything in automation, you lose control. That's why I was actually telling my sister here, Whitney, that if you have semi-automation and semi-manual, that manual one tries at least to control. But if you put everything on automation, just like if you have a car which is purely automation, when the car has trouble, you have to carry it. But the older car, which was manual, you can even push it. There are some cars you can't push. You have to actually carry it. So we lose control when we go more automation.
Very well. And of course, I mean, we cannot run away from the fact that, the future is automation, because through automation, you remove unnecessary human interaction, and of course you make the systems more efficient. But I also want to hear from you, and I want to read the statement that was, part of the statement that was issued by the Information Communication and Digital Economy CS Eliud Owalo, which was issued on Friday. And this is part of the statement, and this is what he said. The attack on the eCitizen platform involved an unsuccessful attempt to overload the system with extraordinary requests with the intention of clogging the system, but our technical teams blocked the source IP address from which the request originated. That was part of the statement that was issued by IC and DE Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo. And I want to hear from you, Micheni. Was the government assurance reassuring at that time?
Thank you, O'Brien. Not at all, because as I've said earlier, we've not been told if there was a data breach or if they, in fact, the government invested.
But the statement said, but the CS said that the attempted attacks were unsuccessful.
but they were denied. The whole point, the motive of the hack of Anonymous Sudan was to deny services, which they were successful in. So I totally disagree with that statement, because the motive of Anonymous Sudan was to just, jam the online traffic and make the services inaccessible, which they were totally successful at. So I do believe that the motive of the people, the hackers, was achieved. But as I've said, we've not been told if the government, the systems were actually infiltrated, because we do not know if they had end-to-end visibility of what was actually happening in the system. Because even though we can say that the e-citizen system is up right now, probably they're using a backup data.
Sorry for stepping on issues. Let me read part of the system. Part of this statement by the IC and DE speech, and this is what he said. Statement. To be clear, neither the privacy nor the security of data has been compromised. This is not my statement. It's a statement by Cabinet Secretary for ICT, Information, Communication and Digital Economy. And then it went on to say the system was not hacked. Okay, and this is the highest authority in matters ICT in the land. And so, for you to counter his argument, then you must be having a very strong opinion to counter this. Is it true?
I want to agree with you. Look at in the ICT system architecture, we all pursue one thing: a detection-focused system. In the event that any attack wants to come to our system, then we have all this detection system, all the professors mentioned, for example, AI, because here we have very high advanced collaboration between humans, machines, processes, and systems. In all that collaborative approaches, there must be a detection. If there's a detection of incoming jams, then there must be a lot. Hey, we have something going on here. I believe that happened because our systems have a comprehensive security protection. But here we are saying very categorically, there is evidence that for a particular period of time, before remedial measures were taken, services were denied to the citizens. That alone is a success of what we are talking about. And they wrote on their page, if you want your services back, you have to do 1, 2, 3. Isn't it? Which we don't do because we have that capability of remediation. Our human capacity and capabilities went back and really got back remediation. But within that short period where there was no service, that is what they were intended to do.
Allow me to bring us to speed with some of the institutions that are mandated to protect Kenya's cyberspace. Before we go on air, before we go for the break, and one of the institutions is the Computer Incident Response Team and Coordination Center, also known as KECIRT. That is one of the institutions. The National Digital Forensics Laboratory at the National Police Service, which is domiciled at the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. And of course, the National Computer and Cybercrime Coordination Committee, which is also known as NC for Secretariat. And it should not be lost to us that, in the African continent, Kenya has some of the most advanced ICT systems, and of course, some of the most educated ICT experts.
Absolutely.
Do you want to counter that as well?
Well, what I want to say is that, first of all, I like the ICT and whatever you call ECTCS that gave assurance that the data was secure. But the only one I want to challenge him when he said that there was an API that came from outside that they blocked. If you look at
IP. Internet protocol.
Yes. So if you look at internet protocol, actually it's a form of API, isn't it? And an API can allow expose a premise or data. It has got that capacity. Because if an API can speak to your API, you can consume data and exchange data. So I think that's where, for us as security experts, cyber security experts, we need to understand
very well
what was the role of that IP, isn't it? Because if there was a case of an IP meeting with our IP, it can create a platform they can share and consume each other's IP.
You want to know what they
API.
discussed.
Yes, because we want to know that.
Maybe Chris will be helping us
Maybe Chris, you have to tell us that, because for me,
this.
that's my concern.
Let us take a short break and thereafter, because we have bills to pay, and thereafter, Chris will be helping us to understand whether, first of all, number one, what Prof is saying is true, and if there was such a conversation, between the two IPs, probably maybe you could help us understand what did they say, did they agree on anything? Are you in a position to tell us that? Very well. I'm in the company of Chris. But, he's a security and safety expert, as well as Whitney Micheni, a political economist, and Fred Ogola. You're watching the Scorecard live from Broadcasting House. A quick break is well deserved, and thereafter we are back. Our conversation tonight is on cyber warfare.